Hello, thank you for stopping on my video. My name is Becky and this is BecxReadz. I post videos every 5 days and if I can manage, I will squeeze some in between. And today we are going to start off a weekly reading vlog, and I am going to make this a themed reading vlog to fit in the book that I need to read. So this week I am going to be reading books by authors I've never read from before. So I have to read Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is the book that won my Pick My Monthly TBR. It had the most votes. I am going to listen to the audiobook of this because I feel like if I sat down and read this book, I wouldn't make very much progress on it. I have started listening to the audiobook and I am only right there. So I haven't even gotten too far into it to really tell you my thoughts on it. I am also going to finally get around to trying Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is a book that has gotten so much hype that I want to read it. It's a contemporary romance about a bull rider, and I grew up country girl, so I feel like this should be something that I love. I need to redecorate my tree. The next holidays coming up are pretty much Memorial Day and 4th of July. So I'm going to turn this into a red, white, and blue tree for the next few months because there's really not a holiday in between those. So let's get to decorating. Tuesday, and as you can tell from the previous clip, I have my cowgirl get up on, or as cowgirl as I get these days. I made it 40% into Flawless by Elsie Silver, and I like it. I do. I like it. It's just not wowing me yet. So this is the story, I'm sure most of you know, of Rhett, who is a professional bull rider, and Summer, who is the daughter of his agent. And so when he says something stupid about one of his sponsors and he's caught on camera punching a guy, he ends up needing a babysitter to sort of keep him in line and revamp his image as a good old boy. So her father sends Summer to spend time with Rhett and sort of keep him in line. So at this point, I love the country atmosphere. I love the rodeo vibes of this. I grew up going to rodeos. I was a sheep rider when I was a child. My brother was a bull rider, and I've been around that atmosphere, so it feels fun to be back in that. I haven't been to a rodeo in quite a few years. I'm very familiar with all the terms that are used and all the brands that are used. I worked at a country store for a while selling Ariat and Wranglers, so I know all that jazz. I love the country setting. I love the family atmosphere between Rhett and his brothers and his father. I don't mind the characters. I do think Rhett is a bit immature, but he doesn't get on my nerves too bad. I really like Summer's character. She's very smart. She's willing to learn about this sport she knows nothing about, and she's really getting into it and trying to be there for Rhett without making him feel like he needs to quit something he loves. So I love that. So far, I am not feeling their chemistry, though. I am only 40% in. Nothing has happened yet between them. They have just shared a bedroom. So we haven't got to that part yet. You can tell there's attraction between them, but I'm hoping that once they sort of act on that attraction, that I will start to feel that attraction. But I thought it would be fun to go down memory lane and just like share some pictures of my youth growing up as a country girl, because I do miss it. Every now and then I look back at my pictures and I'm like, oh, I really love living in the country, and I loved being a country girl. However, when you can't drive, living in the country is not conducive to an independent lifestyle. So I have officially become a city girl with a country girl heart. I was a state champion a sheep rider when I was a little girl. They called it sheep riding, not mutton busting back when I did it. And I got this little shirt. It says Little Buckaroo Rodeo. I still keep this. It's still in great condition. Here is a whole thing of stuff I won at the rodeo. So that's the little shirt. I won a belt buckle. I won these little pieces. I won a $2 bill. And I won another rodeo right here too. I don't know what happened to that shirt. And if you put me near a mechanical bull, I will ride it. I have this shirt that says I rode the bull at Gillies. They had a restaurant at the casino that I used to work at in Oklahoma, and they had a mechanical bull there. So anytime I wasn't working and I was at that casino, I would go and I would pay like the $10 or whatever to ride that bull. And I had a fun fucking time. Is me on my horse Jessie when I was a little girl. I love this picture. There's me and my stick horse collection when I wasn't around my actual horse because he was in a different state than I lived. I rode stick horses. First concert when I was 17. You can't tell, but it was a Brooks and Dunn concert. Brooks and Dunn's Neon Circus and Wild West show. So that was just a little jog down my country girl memory lane. I enjoyed my time as a country girl, I really did, and I love having the memories to look back on. So aside from Flawless, I also made pretty good progress in Babel. I am about right there, about 40% into it. So this is, I'm sure I don't need to tell you either because this is pretty popular, but this is the story of a boy named Robin who was taken from his home in China by this professor when he was young. His mother had died, so he pretty much took him in and kept him as like a ward of his. He refused to call him his son though. He didn't want to adopt him. He was just a ward. So he grows up and he has this ability to translate, and so this professor raises him up as his own and introduces him to the finer things in life, meanwhile being very abusive to him and pretty much stripping him of all the heritage that he had. And then when he grows up, he goes to Oxford University to attend Babel, where he will study even more languages and how to translate those using the power of silver. Because in this world, they use silver bars to translate things and give things power. So I'm enjoying this one as well. It is a very slow-moving story, and I'm very glad that I am listening to the audio. I'm not loving the way that this is told. I don't love all the footnote breaks within the story because it does pull me out of the story that I'm listening to, even in audio form. So I know that if I was reading this physically, I would probably skim over all the footnotes in this because I hate footnotes. This is also marketed as an adult story, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's reading very young adult. Nothing really in here that's giving me the impression that it is an adult story. Maybe that will change because maybe Robin will graduate and he will become like a professor at Babel or something, and that will give me the push toward an adult story. But as of right now, I'm just not feeling that vibe. Also, the side characters in this story, I think I'm meant to care about them, but I don't. Like, I couldn't pick any of them out of a lineup. Like, if you said, who is this character, I would not be able to tell you. Because the only character that I'm really interested in following is Robin. I will give you an update when I get further along in my reading. I'm hoping to finish Flawless today. Maybe. We'll see. I have lots of updates. So, I finished reading Babel. I liked this. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed the conversation about translation and where words come from and how translation can lead to colonization and things like that. I thought that was a really interesting concept. It's a very unique story. I also loved the found family aspect of Robin meeting these other students who are also translating and becoming like their own close-knit family. However, as I anticipated, this is a very slow story, and for the last third of it, even though the action amped up, I found myself losing interest in the last third of this book. I started increasing the reading rate to 3 times speed on my audiobook just to get through it. Only characters who I really cared about were Robin and his brother. That was it. I I think this is an interesting book, and I definitely think it's one worth checking out if you don't mind slow-moving stories that really make you think about what you're reading. I think for me personally, it was not worth the hype that it got. I understand why so many people would like this story, but for my personal reading taste, it was just an okay read, and it's something that I will eventually forget about. Which is sad, once again, because I have this beautiful Fairy Loot edition. I also finished reading Flawless, and for the majority of this book, it was like a low 4-star rating for me. I enjoyed it. It gave me that nostalgia of growing up as a country girl, and I liked Summer's character much more than I liked Rhett's character. It took me about 70% into this book for me to actually feel emotionally connected to these characters. And that's when it bumped up to a 4.5-star read for me. I ended up really enjoying how this played out. I loved once I became emotionally invested with the characters that I felt their chemistry a little bit better. My problem with this story is I still didn't feel like an intense chemistry between the characters. I also didn't love Rhett's character. I thought he was a very immature, like 32-year-old guy, which, I mean, that's probably realistic, but still. I did like his character growth within the story as well as Summer's. They both had things that they had to work through, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. They had great smut. I really enjoyed the smut in this story a lot. He is a dirty talker, and I love that. I love the whole good girl praise thing. It just makes me smile every time I see it. I liked the whole one bed trope that was in here. That's one of my favorite things to read in romances as well. And even though I didn't love Rhett's character, I was on his side during the whole point when he was telling people Summer's, like, dark secret. I understood why she got mad at that point because it was her secret to tell, but I also totally was like, go Rhett. I feel like if Rhett hadn't blurted it out and took charge in that moment, that she never would have acknowledged it. She never would have put it out there in the universe and told people this horrible secret about this horrible person. So all in all, I absolutely think this is worth the hype that it's getting. I do plan on continuing with this series. I don't know if I will continue on right away or not, but I do plan on it. This story, it had me thinking of the movie 8 Seconds. It feels like a happier version of that to me. Also made me think of The Cowboy Way, that shot scene in particular that seemed like it was pulled right out of that movie. Which, if you've never watched The Cowboy Way, it's probably a problematic movie, but it was funny as hell. Up next, I am going to start a physical book. I am going to start Transcendence by Shea Savage. All I know about this book is it is a Twilight reimagining with our main character Ed being a caveman, and I don't know the girl's name. It starts with a B. I think it's either B or Belle or something like that. And she is a modern woman who gets transported back in time to caveman era, and she ends up falling in love. I know this has like a language barrier aspect to it as well. And I've heard people say this is such a sweet romance. So I'm excited to read this. Ebook wise, I think I'm going to read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This series people love. And I've heard it's a friends to lovers fantasy romance, which y'all know I love friends to lovers. So this should be something I enjoy. Bad news. I DNF'd both those books. So I made it into 125 pages of Transcendence by Shea Savage. And this book is only 300 pages long. So I was a little under halfway through this book. Now, if you're looking for a sweet male character who's just dumb, This is your man. Ed is your man. For a caveman, he could be very intelligent. However, cavemen are not intelligent in the vast scheme of things. And Ed here, while he was sweet, he was just too dumb for me. I say it all the time and I'll say it again. I'm a dialogue reader. I love dialogue. It helps me connect with the characters because that's how I get to know people in life. I speak to them. I have conversations with them, you know? So for this book to be completely in Ed's perspective, there's very minimal dialogue. Like if I were to put all the dialogue that has happened in this book in 125 or 150 pages, however far I made it, it wouldn't even fill half a page. So I don't feel any sort of romantic connection between these two because they're not communicating. They're just pretty coexisting in a cave together. The other thing I don't love about this is because it's all in Ed's perspective. He's a caveman. He doesn't know what jeans are. He doesn't know what a bra is. But yet he will say things like, I felt the scrap of silk, as in her underwear, or her hair is really silky. And I'm thinking, Ed, my man, how do you know what silk is? You're a caveman. He is incredibly focused on impregnating her. Immediately upon finding her, he's like, ah, my mate. I must impregnate her so I can provide for our child. It's like, Ed, my man, I know you're not intelligent, but you are having trouble providing for yourself, and now you're having trouble providing for this woman that you found. What in your small little pea brain says, yes, let's bring a innocent child into this world that I also cannot provide? It's like, Ed, come on now, Ed. I couldn't. He's so dumb. And then I think Ed may have put me in a slump, or maybe this book just isn't for me, but I started reading Daughter of No Worlds. Everybody on Booktube seems to love this book that I've seen, that I follow anyway. In the beginning, I was on board with it. I was interested. We have this girl, Tasana, who is put into slavery, and she's trying to get enough coin to buy her freedom, and she escapes, and then she gets to this other kingdom, territory, whatever, in the hopes that she can join this thing called the Order to then help liberate the other slaves. When she gets to this other kingdom, when she meets Max, who is supposed to be her love interest, I don't know, at 150 pages, I know I got that far in this book, I felt no chemistry between them. Didn't even feel like they liked each other. When she met him, my interest just started declining really bad. At 150 pages, you should be able to have my full attention. I should be invested in that story to the point where I can't put it down at 150 pages. That's what I feel like. And this just wasn't doing it for me. And for her being in this situation of being a slave, she was raped, she was tortured, she was just abused all around. This girl in 150 pages, she showed no emotion. She showed no signs of like trauma. And I'm like, girl, like shed a fucking tear or something, like be angry at something. She just came across as this very stoic, like I'm a strong girl. I survived everything. And well, I love a strong female character who can survive through the toughest of situations. I need them to show some sort of vulnerability and emotion. Because if you don't, you're just like a damn robot who I can't relate to. And I didn't love it. Because this girl is dry as sand. Her whole training thing was kind of lame. Like, she's not even learning how to, like, wield a weapon. She's learning how to make butterflies and flowers. Very realistic ones. And I'm sure that takes a lot of concentration and skill, but, like, what the fuck is that going to do? And at 150 pages, I couldn't care anymore. I didn't care about this character. So I'm thinking that I'm just not going to try this series. I think I will try eventually her, The Serpents and the Wings of Night or whatever. I should have started with that one. I'm going to give 2 more books a try in this reading vlog of authors I've never read anything from. This one is, oh, it's a chunker. It's going to take me a while. Jesus, I might not even finish it in this vlog. But I'm in the mood to read Anastasia by Sophie Lark. That's right, I've never read anything by Sophie Lark. I keep meaning to try her Brutal Birthright series, but I just haven't. This is the book of hers that I own. So I want to give this a go. I have started reading it. I am only on page 30. So can't really tell you much about it other than the fact that it's about Anastasia and her family, and it is set in a fantasy-esque world. And then the other book that I'm going to try on ebook is, hold on, I forgot the name of it. A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. I've heard mixed things about this, but I know April at Happily Ever April, she loves this story. And I've heard that it's not a very complex fantasy. It's pretty much just popcorn. You don't really get like epic fantasy. And that is what I'm looking for. I'm not an epic fantasy girl. I am an easy peasy breezy. Give me something light, something entertaining, something that gets me involved with the characters. That is what I am. So this week-long vlog has turned into a 2-week-long vlog. It is now Tuesday, the 18th, I think? Pretty sure. Anyway, I started this last Monday, so here we are. I finished A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows by Holly Renee. And I liked this. I gave it 4 stars. I went into it with very low expectations, and I think that helped my enjoyment of it because I have heard mixed things about it. So in this, we are following Adara, who is star-blessed. She has like these star tattoos or markings on her body, and it has been prophesied that she will marry the Fae Prince, and he has to like drink her blood and it will heighten his powers. And so she's pretty much been sacrificed for that. So when she goes to the Fae realm and she meets her betrothed or whatever, she also ends up meeting his brother, who is in the royal guard. His name is Everin, and she immediately takes a liking to him. He is the dark, like, bastard prince of this kingdom. And he takes a liking to her as well. So he's very possessive of her, and he doesn't really want his brother to have her. He wants to have her, and she wants to have him, but you know, alliances and all that. And something ends up happening, and they have to go on the run to the Blood Court, which is like where the vampires are. And along the way, stuff happens. I liked that it was an easy breezy fantasy romance that swayed more toward the romance than the fantasy. And I liked the chemistry between Adara and Everin. I thought they had really good chemistry because it is a bit of a forbidden relationship because she's, you know, engaged to his brother. I liked that she didn't end up in a love triangle between these two brothers. I really, really appreciated that fact because when I was reading it, she would sometimes like view her betrothed as like, oh, he's not so bad. And then something would happen and she'd be like, oh, I really don't like him. So I loved that this didn't turn into a love triangle. Now, whether or not the future books go that route, I don't know. But for this book, it didn't, and I was pleased about that. I also really enjoyed the ending of this book. It was very predictable. I pretty much saw it coming, but I still enjoyed the way that it worked out and how it played out. What I didn't love about this book, and the reason it only got 4 stars for me, is there's too much smut in this book. Like, I like my smutty times. I do. But this book is under 300 pages. And, like, the last, I want to say half of this book, just smut after smut after smut after smut. And I'm not going to lie, there were, I think, 3 sex scenes that I just skimmed through. Because I was like, oh my god, we're doing it again. And we're doing it again. And we're doing it again. Nope. Just passed it on by because I was so over all the smut by that point. These two are just horny for each other all the goddamn time. And I've read like erotica novellas that are like 54 pages that only contain 2 smut scenes, okay? I swear, in 54 pages, this book probably had 4+ smut scenes in it. Too much damn smut in this book for the number of pages that it had. I also didn't love that there was some like lack of communication between this couple. Like, y'all could have just been up front with one another and told each other all these secrets beforehand, but angst and tension, whatever. I didn't love it. Overall, I had a good time with this, and I will be continuing the series. I don't know that I will continue right away because I'm really bad at that, but it is one that I would like to finish out and see where it goes. As for Anastasia here, I have not made significant progress in this. I'm only on page 70 at this point. I'm right there. I started this on Saturday, I think, and it is now Tuesday. and I'm only at 70 pages of this book. I want to love this book. I love the Anastasia cartoon, and I know that this isn't a retelling of that, but this is a fantasy romance. How many pages am I going to have to read before the romance kicks in? And at this point, it's just been a really slow beginning. Like, I just reached part 2. And so far, we're just getting to know Anastasia and her family. Nothing too fantastical has even happened, really, in this story. And I just feel like I'm, like, reading a freaking history book or something. I don't know. So I'm not DNFing it yet. I am going to give myself at least to 100 pages to see if I can vibe with this story, because I want to love this. I do. I want to. It's such a beautiful book. It's got, like, full-page illustrations and stuff in it as well. So I don't think I am going to finish this book in this vlog. You will see in my wrap-up if I finished this book or not, but that is as far as I've gotten. However, I did want to share an unexpected addition to this reading vlog that I hadn't planned on even reading, and that is Nightshade by Carrie Lake. So one of my followers over on Instagram, she messaged me and asked me if I had read this book, and I said no, and she passionately kept, like, telling me I needed to read this book. She was sending me messages and all that, and I'm like, okay, I will read this book. It is a gothic romance. I'd never heard of this book before. So I got it. I didn't really read the synopsis too in depth about it. I just wanted to go in blind. I started reading this on Sunday, and I made it 200 pages in by Sunday evening. I was hooked into this book. I have just reached, I think, 54% into this book. It is a 660 page book, which I didn't know going in. So the fact that this 600 page book isn't working for me, but this 600 page book is, amazes me. So in this book, we are following 2 timelines. The past timeline, we are following Lestina, whose mother was burned at stake for being a witch, and she has been taken in by this very fanatical religious cult called the Pentacrew? Not sure how you say it. So this book has a lot of, like, Christian undertones to it. So if that's not your vibe, you might not enjoy this. But when she is put into this, like, almost like nunnery, there she ends up meeting this young baron named Jericho. And he has something different about him. The people who run this religious order, they think he is possessed. He is this very aggressive, very gruff, very mean character. And immediately when he meets her, something about her draws him to her. And he is infatuated with her. Because she is in this religious cult, pretty much, they want her to be very, like, chaste and know nothing of, like, the opposite sex or engage in anything that they consider sinful. But he starts to, you know, lure her into his wicked ways. So alongside that story throughout the book, we are also following the present day story of Farron, whose father studied this religious sect. He apparently jumped off a cliff and supposedly killed himself, but his body was never found. Same thing with her mother. Her mother, like, drove off a cliff or something, and her body was never found. So when she starts having these very weird dreams, in her dreams, she's told to go find this Van Craw person in this other world. And so she seeks out this guy who can help her. And in doing so, she finds out that her father may not have just jumped off a cliff. He may have jumped into the underworld. And there she ends up meeting Jericho, who now is, like, the ruler almost of this underworld. People consider him death, but the people who are in this underworld, known as Nightshade, hence the title, they don't know that they're dead. Nightshade is where her father went to try and find her mother. And when he went to Nightshade, he asked Jericho to protect Farron. And as we're reading these 2 stories that are lining up, we sort of figure out that Farron may be the reincarnation of Lestina. And somewhere in there, Jericho has lost his memory of Lestina. And so he's drawn to Farron, but he doesn't know why. And she is drawn to him, but she doesn't know why either. So this story is just fucking fascinating to me. I love reincarnation stories. They're one of my favorite things to read. So that hooked me into this. And for me not knowing anything about this book, that intrigued me. It started off with a bang. It had a good hook with her mother being burned and her being forced into this religious sect. It's got dark undertones to it with like abuse, religious cults, the afterlife, angels, demons. It's just got a lot going on with it, but it's doing it for me. For this being a dark gothic paranormal romance, I will say it takes about 300 pages halfway through this book to even get some sort of semblance of a romance. Like, we can see that Lestina and Jericho from the past have a connection, but they don't really act on that connection until about halfway through the book. Meanwhile, Farron and Jericho are just meeting in that half of the book, so we still haven't got any like action on their part as far as a romance goes. But I am loving it. I love this entire plot. So I am very glad that my follower Jen so enthusiastically recommended me this, because I probably never would have picked this up because I've never heard of it. I've never heard anybody talk about it. I am determined to finish this book by the end of this vlog. And the next time that I check in with you, I will be finished with this. Hopefully it doesn't take me until like Friday to finish it, but we will see. And we'll see if I'm still enjoying it by the end. So until then, it is Wednesday and I have finished Nightshade officially. This book, y'all, this book just had me in a chokehold and it was a trip. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I loved that this hooked me from the start. It had a great hook and it just kept tugging me along. I love that this had reincarnation in it. It is, like I mentioned, something that I enjoy. I loved the demons and angels. I loved the afterlife. I love hereafter stories as well. So that was really interesting. I loved the chemistry between these characters. They had great chemistry. It is a slow burn story, let me tell you. It takes about 300 pages to really get to any sort of smut scenes, but you feel their chemistry as you're reading. I would give this probably 2.5 chili peppers worth of steam. He is a dirty talking hero. He is a villainous, morally gray character. He is a touch her and die, I will burn the world for her. And he does. He literally burns people for the way they treat her. It's great. This had a very well set up world. It gives you backstories into the characters' motivations and their feelings for one another, which I really enjoyed. It has action galore. The only things that I didn't love about this book, but because I loved so much of this book, the 2 little minor things that I didn't like did not detract the star rating from this. It does have pregnancy in it, and I'm not a fan of the books that are like, oh, you have to get pregnant for me to stay with you or for you to stay with me. It gives off a breeding kink is what it gives off. And this sort of has that. I also didn't love the villainous monologues in this book. For the last 10%, it sort of slowed down for me because it was so much of, why are you doing this? This is why I'm doing this. This is what happened in the past. What? Tell me more, huh? And I thought that could have just been, I don't know, woven into the story better instead of just the villain just talking about what he's gonna do. I mean, if you're gonna kill somebody, just do it already. But overall, I enjoyed so much of this book. It captured my attention so thoroughly. 5 stars. Highly recommend this book. That is the end of this 1.5 week long reading vlog where I tried authors I have never read from before. There were some hits in here and there were some misses in here. Let me know down in the comments, have you read any of these authors? Have you read a different book by them that is your favorite? And if you've made it this far in the video, could you leave me the cross emoji, since Nightshade dealt with some religious aspects. And until my next video, thank you so much for watching, and go read a book by an author you've never read from before. Bye!